In 1997 to 2005, George Lucas gave us the Skywalker saga. Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Episode 4, A New Hope. Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. Telling the stories of the two titular characters, Anakin and Luke Skywalker, as they overcome their destiny to become the Dark Lord of the Sith, or someone who can bring balance to the Force. Many people loved it, and some people were a little bit edgy about the prequels at first, but thanks to animated content such as Star Wars The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, etc., 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 we were able to give a new perspective, and over time we came to accept that the first 6 movies were indeed the Skywalker saga that this universe deserves. But then when Disney bought the rights to Star Wars, in 2015, J.J. Abrams released Star Wars The Force Awakens. Many people loved it, many people hated it, but personally, I thought it was okay. It did take a few elements from the original film, the intention was to, on a younger audience standpoint, to reignite that spark, and they did try their best to make it as original as possible. But I won't lie, that it is still there. There's no doubt. It wasn't perfect, but we all hoped that the later sequels would likely, expand upon that and hopefully create a better film than we got originally back in 2015. Then in 2017, with Star Wars The Last Jedi, now I'm not saying that the change of directors was at fault here. There was so many things that were just out in the open with that, because there were some good scenes that were missing from The Last Jedi. There was hardly any emphasis on that, and it just seems like if we haven't seen, it's kind of like how we felt when we saw the prequel trilogy. There was nothing to expand upon, no TV series, there was no side movies to accompany that, and well, yes, we did get Rogue One and while we did get Rogue One and Solo prior to fill in the spot before and after The Last Jedi, what came after, and I'm regretting to say this, but the Rise of Skywalker, suffice to say, it shattered the community. Most of the people just don't know how to think of it. The cast wanted nothing to do with Star Wars after it was over. And not to saying that, it was all bad. Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine is always a win, no matter the trilogy. But there were some character arcs that were completely broken, some characters that just lose all character development in between the 3 films. And again, the choice of director wasn't necessarily at fault. It was the way they proceeded through the story. They tried to get it rushed as quickly as they possibly could. They took no time to make it so long that it becomes a Lord of the Rings film, which is understandable because later films do go over 3 or 4 hours. But if this year's The Batman has taught me anything, or was it last year? No, it's definitely this year. Robert Pattinson's The Batman's taught me anything. Although it may seem longer to extend a Star Wars film to over 3 hours, if given proper story development, then it's well and worth the 3 hours. But that aside, after the Rise of Skywalker, lots of people divided from the Star Wars community altogether after what they witnessed. But today, and thanks to inspiration by Channel Awesome's fanscription, I sat down on my chair, got up my pencil after doing artwork and most of my projects for the upcoming year, and decided to rewrite the entire sequel trilogy. It was not easy. There were a lot of things to cover over. The Force Awakens, not so much, but there were a few things that could have been better. So I had a discussion with a couple little pals, managed to gather my resources together, see what I could do in between, which of course anything in between will be explained in a later video, the in-between being TV shows that will fill in between The Force Awakens and Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. But I will give you fair warning, it's not going to be as good as the original. There will be a few things that are similar, but there are a few things that I'm probably going to add. I'm not expecting this to be better than the sequel trilogy or even the prequel or original trilogies. This is just an interpretation on how it would feel when someone gets in the seat they think about, the Star Wars fans, and they think about how wonderful the story was back in the day, and then they would project that same love onto this rewrite, and that is what we're going to be witnessing today. So, for everyone here at Seanster 5, as well as of the Mass Legion, and everyone in the Seanster Patrol made by Family Manny Posse, I hope that you all enjoyed today's show as we get into a rewritten story, or otherwise known as the Seanster cut, of the Star Wars Sequel Trilogy. Hope you enjoy the show. May the Force be with you. Kickstarting the sequel trilogy is, of course, Episode 7, Star Wars The Force Awakens. The beginning very much stays the same, with the First Order attacking Jakku, Poe gets captured, Lord San Tekka gets killed after mentioning Kylo Ren's Jedi Master. Who might that be, since it wasn't mentioned in the original? Just have to find out. As well as Finn rescuing Poe. While this is happening, we see BB-8 meet up with Rey before Poe's torture happens. And moving right along, when Finn and Rey and BB-8 escape Jakku, Rey notices that the stormtroopers kept calling him FN2187 as they ran to the Millennium Falcon. After Finn told Rey that he was with the after Rey, of course, told he was with the Resistance, of course, because that has to be implemented in there. But instead of lying in the Falcon, Finn then tells Rey his somber backstory early, that very much the same, see what he told Rey on Jakku, but it happens in the Falcon. But we don't need to keep up that lie anymore, okay? It was a little bit much, even for a stormtrooper like Rey. But this happens before Han and Chewie meet up with them. They escape to Takodana and meet up with Maz Kanata, but she then confronts Finn, saying that his bravery to say what their bravery to say was truly beautiful. Then this, of course, leads to the scene where because Rey and Finn are on pretty good terms now that they've told each other the truth. Well, mainly Finn, but then Rey finds Anakin's lightsaber, and the Battle of Takodana and Starkiller Base stays pretty much the same, with a cameo of the Death Star 2 here and there, because in the original, when they were comparing Starkiller Base to the Death Star, they showed the Death Star 1. But I may have got inspired by how it should have ended, but you might as well put it in there. As well as Jana, the character from The Rise of Skywalker, in a Stormtrooper outfit thrown in, because, as we all know from The Rise of Skywalker, Jana was a Stormtrooper. So, to make her more of a, out-in-the-open character, I think the decision to bring her out in the first sequel trilogy would likely lead to, getting a lot more scenes and make flushing out her character a lot better before we get to her first meeting in The Rise of Skywalker. During the forest scene, both Finn and Rey would then face off Kylo Ren together, passing the lightsaber between them, kind of like hot potato, except they're fighting a Sith Lord, even so much as scarring Kylo. But then Kylo slashes Finn in the back and stabs his chest, which is a lot more brutal than it sounds, but don't worry, Finn is okay, and force pushes Rey back against the tree like he does in the original. But then, little something different when all hope seems lost, when Kylo is about to force pull the lightsaber to him. Who is to come and save the day? But Luke Skywalker via a force projection, then comes down to give enough time for the two to escape Starkiller Base, as Kylo Ren was both left defeated and confused as Starkiller Base exploded on how his uncle actually got there. Rey and Finn were able to get out of there okay, but now this may be a little bit of a blowout, but Finn is now in a coma, and no one knows how long it will be before he wakes up. And with Rey, after mourning the death of Han Solo, which still happens the same as usual, that she then goes with Chewie in the Millennium Falcon to Ochō, where she hands Luke Skywalker his lightsaber like the original. So, before we move on to The Last Jedi, there are a couple additional notes, one of them being the upcoming TV series, which will fill in between this film and The Last Jedi. The additional note is that, me and my good friend, whose name I will gladly display now, we had a little discussion about Han, after losing Ben Solo, becoming drunk while hauling for Balatik and Tasu Leech, but then becomes sober on the way to Dakar. After much thinking about it and having a little bit more discussion, this would actually work. Han Solo was, a great hero for all times, but people do wonder why he went down a downward spiral. Why did he leave Leia? Why did he go back to his life of smuggling? And this could all be out of depression. And it's when he returns to Dakar and has the discussion with Leia, it eventually gives him more time to like think more on what he wants to do with his life. And then at the decision when he is now face to face with Ben, he is fully sober and he actually wants to help him. He's confronting his fear up until the point of his death. It may not be much, but it's the little details that make a story all the more sweet. And as for the TV series, we're going to be adding a Star Wars Visions character in there. Now, and it is going to be Lop. Now, I know I pretty much emphasized Lop a lot since I did do 3 Seanster vs. What Ifs based around Lop, but with the right story direction, and if I could fit Lop into the canon, then who knows? Maybe she might make a difference in this little rewrite trilogy. How big of a difference? Well, we'll just have to find out very soon. And of course, the details of her TV series will be coming out December 2023, alongside another series that will be fitted in between Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. But speaking of which, time to move on to Episode 8. Star Wars The Last Jedi. The film opens up with Kylo Ren's shuttle heading back to the Supremacy, where the Knights of Ren painfully restore his wounds after the grueling battle of Starkiller Base. Rey's training with Luke, with the inclusion of the deleted third lesson, will remain the same, but with a few slight differences. One, Luke doesn't lie to Rey and tells her about Lop's death leading to create Kylo Ren. And yep, Lop is Ben's master. But how does she get to that level of power? Well, all will be discussed in 2023. 2. He tells Rey that he is dying due to his disconnection with the Force, and using the Force projection shaves off a lot of his life energy. And because the Force itself is an energy field created by all living things, the concept of a Jedi dying from their disconnection to the Force and using a Force ability that's so powerful, it raises the stakes a little bit, and it gives Luke more of a reason to want to end the Jedi. And 3, Luke, after a talk with his father's ghost, apologizes to Rey after the third lesson and asks if they could try again, this time for a 2-year training session. 2 years between film, 2015, 2007. It's the finer details. It's the finer details. The attack on the Dreadnought over Dakar remains the same also, but Poe accepts his demotion due to a strong argument with Leia. Hux will then not be a Force punching bag, because, Hux's character could have been so good. He was amazing in The Force Awakens, especially his speech at Starkiller Base, so he shouldn't really be, treated as a punching bag here, or possibly not, because, Domhnall Gleeson deserves better, man. You deserve better. But instead will, of course, be hounded by Allegiant General Pride, played here by Richard E. Grant, requesting his presence to the Supreme Leader Snoke. When the Resistance discovers that the First Order has lightspeed tracking, Leia undemotes Poe, little funny moment, to get him back into the action until he sees Finn being escorted by a Rose Tico, finally awake from his 2-year coma, asking where the heck is Rey? Finn, of course, was then saddened, as shown in the deleted scene, that time has went so fast, and wanting to see her now, as BB-8 showed him what Rey said to him before she left Ahch-To. And by that moment, Finn knew what he had to do. But, and by that, of course, he did have a job to do, but moving right along. Sorry for stories, sorry. Moving right along, after Kylo Ren and his knights knocked Leia out and destroyed the chain of command, Holdo was put in charge while Admiral Akbar is disgusted as he laid there injured. The relation with Holdo and Poe would pretty much remain the same, but before things could get any dicey like it did in the original film, no mutinies here today, Akbar would be there to cool his jets. Akbar then tells Finn and Rose, Poe and BB-8 two things. 1, there is a mole in the Resistance, and 2, he knows someone in the old rebellion known as the Master Codebreaker. He may be not so smart, but he's trustworthy, and his last known location was Cantonica. All 3 set off, and with the events staying mostly the same, the Master Codebreaker is revealed to be a man named Terry Turbostar, who broke them out of prison and got them off the planet easily. And this is one thing to note, that Terry will be played by Paul McGann. That's right. We're bringing Withnail and I into this trilogy. Yeah. Because in the movie Withnail and I, Paul McGann and Richard E. Grant played both titular characters together, and I just thought it'd be a finer detail. There were, many things going around, but I think Paul McGann, the Eighth Doctor himself, would have been a perfect choice here. We then cut back to Ochō, where Rey has finished meditating after visiting Luke for training, but the dark side cave calls to her and shows what she sees in the original movie. Ben and Rey having their Force talk, Luke getting angry at this, and Rey finding out that Luke tried to kill Ben solo stays pretty much the same. As Rey left to reform Ben, even though he had taught her all that he could for those 2 years, Luke feels like he's pretty much failed again and tries to burn the tree. But Yoda, of course, arrives and does it for him and gives Luke the "we are what we grow beyond" speech as the original movie as the Jedi tree burns. Rey uses the Falcon's escape pod to head to the hangar of the Supremacy, where Kylo Ren and his Knights of Ren awaits her capture. Sorry, I almost slipped on my words for a second there. Kylo orders the Knights of Ren to stay outside as Rey and Kylo head to Supreme Leader Snoke. The throne room scene would remain pretty much the same, but Snoke's death will remain a surprise. We don't want to show Rey's lightsaber until Kylo Ren kills him, because although the original scene was pretty good, just seeing the movements of Rey's lightsaber kind of took the surprise away. So we're not going to show Rey's saber until Kylo kills Snoke. We're only just going to focus on Kylo and his lightsaber and Rey only. Keep the surprise till after. When Kylo persuades Rey to join him, he does not mention her parents. The whole, they sold you off for drinking money. But he says how she was born from nothing. She was nothing, but not to him, before the struggle for this Anakin's lightsaber would essentially begin like the original. Meanwhile, on Finn, Poe, Rose, BB-8, and Terry's side, after Terry and Rose talk about Rose's family and how brave her sister and mother were, they arrived at the Supremacy pretty much the same as they did, but with BB-9E exposing our heroes, thus alerting Phasma and the troops. General Hux and Allegiant General Private arrive also to thank them all, and while Poe highly suspects Terry for showing signs due to him sobering up, the mole, to everyone's surprise, all along, was Rose. That's right. This time, the mole in the Resistance is Rose Tico. Now, this may be a surprise decision. I get that, but I know while the original scene had a Del Toro character in there, I plan to save Del Toro's character until later down the line, maybe for a TV series, which of course we'll get into after we go through The Last Jedi. But in this movie, she became a mole due to the First Order's countless murders, including her own family, and made a deal with Pride to capture Finn and his friends in exchange for the fleet to be let go. And of course, thankful for her work, Pride orders the execution of every single one of them. And Hux implies that this is too harsh, giving Hux a little bit of a conflict here, because this is what they normally do. They normally let their spies go. But due to Rose being too close with the Resistance, she could prove a problem someday. As he glances at Rose's pendant while holding it, after saying what foolish people they were, and her planet were as their world would be next. Pretty much similar, but it would mostly be different to how it was in the original scene. But like in the original scene, Rose still bites back, this time with Pride's hand, causing him to give her a backhand and demands for the execution to begin at once. Ooh, okay. Sorry for stuttering. Between. Let's just say that when I wrote this, to be fair, it was with a particularly weak pencil, to be fair, at the time. But don't worry, I could still see the words. It's just me slipping up on the words anyway. As Rey and Kylo Ren struggle to reclaim Anakin's lightsaber, and Finn's side not looking too good back on the fleet, Holdo wants to know that where Poe and his friends have gone to, and realizes that they've gone missing, demands Atbar to tell her where they have gone. But after many refusals, Holdo, in her desperation, pulls a blaster on him, telling him to tell her the location of where they are, or they will relieve him of duty and have him court-martialed. But to save Akbar's life, a fully healed Leia enters the room, telling Holdo to stand down and leave the room. And, of course, Leia then would then tell him that her plan was to evacuate the ship to the planet Crate, and wants to know where Poe, Finn, BB-8, and Rose are. As the Resistance forces entered the transports, one of them had to stay behind to man the ship, and while Holdo volunteered to stay behind, Admiral Akbar was the one who sacrificed himself for the Resistance and its future. His son Ataf Akbar says and begs him not to do this, but his father believes he could continue the fight and watches the transports take off before the Holdo, now Akbar maneuver had begun, destroying the Supremacy's fleet. Inside the Supremacy's damaged hangar, Leia contacts Poe via BB-8, explaining the plan and makes for a break for the shuttle near the hangar doors. Finn saw Rose on the floor and chooses to save her, despite Rose's protest on leaving her behind for betrayal. Finn tells her that as a former stormtrooper, from his experiences and believing in what the right thing is, they won't even know that she betrayed the Resistance, and Poe, Terry, and BB-8 will forgive her in time. Finn versus Phasma would happen as normal, but the deleted scene of calling out Phasma for shutting down Starkiller shields is included here. This will also include Phasma killing her troops, but Finn saves Jannah, who is in that scene in this version, very, very much present, and further building up her character until the Rise of Skywalker. And of course, Finn goes ahead, cuts off her arm, and after being knocked down, shoots Phasma with a heavy blaster, blowing her away as she fell into a fiery grave in the deleted scene. Finn tells Jannah to run as she heads to the TIE fighters before BB-8, Rose, Poe, and Terry, with a sentry gun, ride an AT-ST all the way to the shuttle and leaves the Supremacy alongside Rey, who left 2 minutes after them. The Battle of Crates events play out very similar, but the laser cannon, this one, was successfully destroyed, but an AT-M6 shot down Rose's speeder, to which Finn rushes over to bring Rose to a medic. Poe asks why, as she is a traitor, to which Finn says, like I was. This took Poe well back by his answer, as Finn gave Terry Rose for medical treatment. Luke's arrival on Crate would very much stay the same, but Luke's "no one is ever really gone" line is now more impactful due to the cause of Luke's life force draining away from the force projection. Leia felt Luke was going to die, but Luke told her she will never lose him, or Han, or Ben. He gives Leia Han's dice and leaves to confront Ben while buying time for the Resistance to escape. As Kylo Ren orders every AT-M6 to fire on his uncle, Luke uses the Force to freeze the fire blasts and reflects every single one of them back at the AT-M6s, destroying every walker in both his and Kylo Ren's sight. Kylo and Luke's duel remain the same, except Luke will have his signature green lightsaber. Yep, the green lightsaber's coming back, everybody. And mentions Lot during his "strike me down in anger and I'll always be with you" speech alongside Han. A furious and conflicted Kylo Ren slashes Luke in two, but with no damage. And he figures out that Luke is a force projection, just like the original. But in this version, before Luke dies, the ghosts of Anakin and Padme manage to get him back on his feet as all three stare into the binary sunset before Luke Skywalker passes away and becomes one with the Force. The ending would remain the same up to the point where the Broom Kid, because instead of the Broom Kid, we cut to Kylo Ren's cruiser, the Steadfast, where he hears a message that echoed across the galaxy. Their ships entered into hyperspace as the words were told. At last, my second coming has arrived. At last, the darkness rises to meet the light. At last, the work of generations is complete. The great error is corrected. The day of victory is at hand. The day of revenge. The day of furious judgment. The day of the Sith. We then cut to Palpatine's deformed face on Exegol, and the credits roll. And it is here where we shall fill the spaces between The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker with a TV series for Finn, where it will feature the further adventures of Finn and Rose as they further progress on down the lines in becoming higher in the ranks in the Resistance. And famous guest stars will include Emmerdale's Joe Warren Plant and Paige Sandu, as well as Jodie Whittaker. And Jodie Whittaker in Star Wars, really, Seanster? Well, I was, I'm not many people liked the performance as the 13th Doctor. But there were some that were. Me included, to be fair. Jodie's performance absolutely awesome, and with the Finn series, the Finn TV series. So sorry. I hope to make Jodie pretty much a main character in the series too. But how will it play out? Just got to find out in 2023. But now, it's time for this rewrite to end as we move on to the final film of this rewritten sequel trilogy. Now, I will remind everyone beforehand, before we start this video, not the video, but I'll start this episode in general. The Rise of Skywalker's rewrite is just as long in terms of how many pages compared to the Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. It is that big. There was a lot of things to redo. There was a lot of plot points that needed to be shifted or reorganized to making it original, but at the same time different to the original story. But it was a fun ride. It was a fun ride rewriting The Rise of Skywalker. And while this may not be as good as the original story of The Rise of Skywalker to some people, but for those Star Wars fans who wished that The Rise of Skywalker would be different, I hope this will be a good show and a good interpretation. Not the best, but definitely one that people can look back on and celebrate Star Wars for what it is and not what it was back in 2019. So, time to move on to The Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker begins 2 years after hearing Palpatine's message and 2 years of searching for a way to find a way to get to him in Exegol. Kylo, Commander Hawks, and General Pry take their forces to Mustafar and slaughter the protectors of Vader's castle. The leader of the protectors told them that Kylo Ren has already gone to Vader's castle, but when he finds the Wayfinder, he will find himself. After General Pry tells the leader how Kylo Ren will be just as glorious as Darth Vader and that he is his true self, the leader calls him out and calls him a liar, and that Pride will die for his pride before he was executed. After his own Vader hallway scene, which of course every Skywalker's got to have their hallway scene, because Vader had one, Luke had one. We're going to give Kylo Ren his own hallway sequence, it's just necessary. Ben then finds the Wayfinder in Vader's vault. Before he could take it, Lop appears behind him and does her best to talk him out of the path that he has taken, and that the boy that she, Han, and Leia love so much with all their hearts is still in there. But Ben has been long gone, and nothing was going to stop him. Lop disappears as the Knights of Ren walk in, and they, along with Kylo Ren, take the Night Buzzard to Exegol. As they arrive on Exegol, Palpatine reveals that Snoke was a dying old fledgling who came to him for help. When Vader destroyed him, Palpatine's soul was thought to be lost, but Snoke and the cultists used Sith alchemy and Kaminoan technology, imperfect as it was, to bring him back to the world of the living. Snoke was dying, but Palpatine restored him more than once, until one day, Snoke used this chance to abandon Palpatine, betraying him. But from his betrayal, Kylo was able to fully flourish as a Sith Lord who surpassed Darth Vader. Palpatine revealed his super decaying face and reveals that with Kylo Ren's help, the might of the Final Order will soon be ready with a fleet of Sith ships from every era, that meaning every ship that was ever used for the dark side, from the CIS to the Galactic Empire to the First Order, it's all there. Pretty much taking the line inspiration from I've just thought that ships from every era from the Atlantis and Lost Empire would make sense. And having every ship from every era of Star Wars being in the Final Order's fleet, it would make so much sense here, and it would make a perfect closure to the battle against the Sith and the Jedi by having all of them here in one spot, along with new weapons and robes for the Knights of Ren. If Ben brings Rey to Palpatine, it'll all be his. Ben then asks Palpatine even, who Rey is. Palpatine sinisterly replies, would you like to know? After their mission to retrieve information from a spy in the Final Order, that's right, the Final Order's getting more scenes in this one. It isn't going to be the First Order because it would be, the First Order throughout the first two films is fantastic. But with the introduction of the Final Order and have it being developed over time, giving them a little bit more scenes like they did in the original would likely give them more of an upgrade experience because, if the First Order was pretty tough, how tough is the Final Order? Giving them here is more of a challenge. Well, we're about to find out. Poe, Finn, Rose, and Chewie, that's right, Rose is going to be in this film, and she's going to be more of a character than she was in this film, were able to escape through lightspeed skipping, which damaged the Falcon. Rey's training happens very much the same, but she doesn't have her lightsaber, for she deems herself unworthy of wielding it. The argument between Rey and Poe happens, but this, thankfully, is broken up by Rose saying that they have a job to do. Having Rose in that scene and intervene Poe and Rey's argument, this would further prove Rose's character development and feels more independent and knows how to break up a fight when they know that they've got a bigger enemy on their hands. So, the information that our heroes found was about a fleet that Palpatine was building and the new management in the First Order, which were rumoured to have originated from a planet called Exegol. But they don't know where it is or how to get there. Thankfully, Rey found in Luke's notes that a Sith Wayfinder can take him there to Exegol. Leia gives Rey the lightsaber, saying that she was ready, despite her refusal at first. And with Terry there to do Rose's job instead, that's right. Although I would have loved to continue on with Paul McGann's character, I'm gonna have to give more of a screen time for Rose to further improve her character. So she, along with our heroes, went to Basana to succeed in their mission. Everything in Basana stays the same, but the iconic "They Fly Now" scene ends with, instead of Poe, it ends with Rose saying, "I know!" After the Space Snake scene, and as Rey and Kylo Ren face off to grab the transport carrying Chewie and the dagger, when Rey uses her Force Lightning, this time it destroys the dagger and Chewie, giving the drama more meaning and consequences to Rey's actions even more dire. That's right, it wasn't an easy decision, but in this version we're actually killing off Chewbacca. It wasn't an easy decision to make, and I hardly do apologise, but for the sake of storytelling and not to give a fake out, as well as further improving Rey's character, this action had to be taken. And for those Chewbacca fans, I'm incredibly sorry, but don't worry, his death will not be for nothing, as this will help improve the story. But as for Finn, he does try to fight back, but the Knights of Ren had greater force power than they did back in the original. And yes, the Knights of Ren do have Force abilities, even more so now thanks to Palpatine's assistance, and overpowered Finn, which forced him to retreat and inform Rey via the comlink, so he doesn't go running over to say, "Rey, Rey!" He actually does something useful, but because he was overpowered, he then uses the comlink to contact Rey, explaining what goes on, that's what's been going on in Chewie's capture. The trip to Kijimi stays the same, but through it all, 3PO is more accepting of this. Poe can sense that, this 360 of personality is bizarre even for him and asks why. 3PO turns around and tells our heroes his final goodbye. End quote. Or is it quote? End quote? Quote. So, yeah, it's double quote. Quote. I'm scared. Scared than I have ever been about anything in my whole life.
I've seen war, sadness, and through it all, hope. But throughout it all, I'm just a droid. A simple, know-it-all droid. Who whines and complains. Who none of you wanted. Who none of you have shown a fraction of respect towards. In fact, Master Poe, you have been cruel to me on multiple occasions during this mission. All of you had. But why am I doing this? Why? Risking my memory for the greater good. You tell me why. Because you are my friends. And if I don't do this, you will die. And I don't wish to live with that for the rest of my life, memory or not. I may be built with over 6 million forms of communication, but all of that is nothing without you.
Unquote. 3PO's mind was tampered by Babu Frick, and thanks to sheer dumb luck, 3PO was able to keep his memory intact, saying, quote,
"Goodness, is that what sleep feels like?"
It was awful. End quote. Rey then suggests that they go to Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer to find his Wayfinder. Poe suggests not to since they have the information that there was a Wayfinder on Kefir, but Rey doesn't listen and starts the ship. Poe's friend Zori Bliss gives our friends their key to freedom, and our heroes then sneak aboard the Steadfast to find Kylo Ren's Wayfinder. I almost said Supremacy, but that was destroyed. This is the Steadfast. They split up, which leads to everyone except for Rey to get captured, just like the original, until Hux the Spy comes to save their lives. Due to the conflicted views of the Final Order and the needing of Kylo Ren to lose, he defects in a heartbeat, which of course his defect to the Resistance happens, briefly, but doesn't show much in The Last Jedi. Not so much, but it's building up to this scene. So the rewrited Last Jedi helps Hux's decision to defect. So Rey enters Kylo's quarters, but she can't find the Wayfinder anywhere, as everything till Kylo and Rey stand face to face in the Finalizer's headquarters stays the same. It's here that, thanks to Chewie's death, his theory and what Palpatine said is true. She doesn't have power. She has his power. She's a Palpatine. And this comes as a little bit more of a shock, to be fair. I mean, it may not be good, but with the rewrite of the shocking reveal that Rey is a Palpatine, it will likely be a lot more better in this, but I digress. After the Falcon comes and to fire on the hangar, our heroes leave for Kefir like they do in the original. When our heroes arrive on Kefir, they were met by Jannah and her comrades who, despite being shaky about Hux being there with our heroes, took them to the village to the rest. And Rey asks about where the Wayfinder is, more distant from her friends in this version, but Jannah tells her that there are ruins of the second Death Star beyond the waves, but the waves are too intense to cross. Finn tries to talk to Rey and asks her, what's wrong? Why are you acting like this? But she goes to her home for the night and shuts the door behind him. An hour later, Hux comes to see Finn and asks, what is wrong with Rey and why is she like this? Then they have a heartfelt conversation about why Lux joined the First Order and how it has changed since he joined. Then Hux asks Finn, why Finn left. He tells Hux that he lost a childhood friend on his first battle, and he doesn't want anyone to suffer that same pain, and to do what is right for the children that the First Order took. Jannah comes in after hearing the conversation and shares her stories with them, Hux feeling remorseful, while Finn was proud that she was brave for as long as she was. Rose then rushes in to tell Finn that Rey is gone. Finn, BB-8 and Jannah decide to go after her, leaving Poe and the others to fix the Falcon. In the Death Star 2's ruins, Rey would find the Wayfinder in Palpatine's throne room, but the Darth Rey scene will be a little bit more of a nightmare, as the corridor would slowly change into the throne room on Exegol,
And from behind, Palpatine appears and says, "Long have I waited for my grandchild to come home." Dead bodies of her friends and zombie versions of her parents would then appear as they curse Rey. She looks at herself and sees that she's wearing dark robes with a red lightsaber. And as she faced herself, a jump scare shows us her face was just like Palpatine's before Rey snaps back into reality out of fear, dropping the Wayfinder and into Kylo Ren's hand. Rey angrily tells Kylo to give it back, but Ben taunts her, Wayfinder in the palm of his hand. Until he taunted Rey far too much, Rey slashes Kylo with her lightsaber, he dodges, and the duel begins. This fight will be a lot more extended as it was in the original, as it will show Rey releasing Dianogas on Kylo Ren to get the Wayfinder, but he slices them all in one swift stroke. Platforms and panels come apart everywhere, duels in midair, until they made it outside with the waves. Now, in a lightsaber lock, Kylo pushes Rey and throws the Wayfinder into the ocean, saying, "The only way you're getting to Exegol is with me." Rey's anger skyrockets and violently attacks Kylo. Finn tries to stop her, but Rey uses Force Lightning on Finn, pushing him back and hurting him greatly before firing at Kylo Ren. However, he deflected every single bolt of lightning and pins Rey to the ground, disarming her and preparing to kill her once and for all. Leia's death and Rey stabbing Kylo Ren stays the same. After healing Kylo Ren, Rey was more saddened and scared of what she had done, more than the original, and what she had become. She then flees to Kylo Ren's TIE Whisperer, never to be seen again. Everyone of our heroes, except for Rey, came back to Agent Kloss, and upon hearing Leia's death, it was Poe that breaks down here, as they all mourn for their losses. The Ben returning scene would stay the same, but Lop, the Star Wars Visions character, now Ben's master, after Ben threw away his dark side lightsaber, the Crossguard, appears behind him, happy to see that her apprentice and friend is still alive. She fishes out the Wayfinder using the Force and gives it back to Ben. Ben could not be more happy to see his old master again, as well as dear friend, as well as thanking her before she left to save Rey and confront Palpatine. A more saddened Poe is confronted by Lando, just like the original, but a funny scene with Hux, hearing Dio mention that he knows the way on how to get to Exegol, telling Finn the news, starting the scene from the original. Basic necessity, Lux was shocked to hear the phrase Exegol, and he was asking Dio, "I'm sorry, what did you say?" And Dio replies, "Exegol," and he just he stops for a minute, looks around, just okay. Finn? We then cut to Rey on Ochō as we see her fully destroy Kylo Ren's TIE Whisperer on screen. Because in the original, we didn't see how it got to that state, but we actually see Rey taking out her anger on the TIE Whisperer before she chucks the Skywalker lightsaber into the fiery wreckage in a Saturn rage. But Luke, now a Force ghost, catches it, saying, quote, "A Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. In some ways, it's your life." End quote. The scene between Luke and Rey remains very much the same, but extended, and with an extended flashback scene of Luke and Leia's training scene. Rey would then find the Wayfinder inside the burnt TIE Whisperer just before Luke pulls his X-Wing out of the water for her, showing it in a lot more beautiful fashion. As the Resistance went over debriefing in hyperspace, Finn finds that Rey is on her way to Exegol in Luke's classic ship, the Red 5 X-Wing Starfighter. Once in the final battle, the Resistance goal was very simple: to stop the massing fleet of Exegol. They would need to disable 3 communication towers. The first was on the planet's surface, the second was on one of their Star Destroyers, and the third was on a former CIS Trade Federation control ship, modified to support the Final Order and destroy planets in its wake. The battle begins, and Rey makes it to the Sith Temple to confront her grandfather with Ben Solo slowly behind her, but was stopped by the Knights of Ren in Palpatine's throne room. The scene plays out the same as the original, with Rey passing Ben the Skywalker saber to face the Dark Force-powered Knights of Ren, while Rey used using Leia's lightsaber, sorry, I almost stuttered for a second, against 7 of Palpatine's sovereign protectors, Palpatine watching all the more sinisterly as he watches the 2 Jedi engage in a duel that would change the fate of the galaxy. Meanwhile, as the 2 of the 3 communication towers were destroyed, the road to the final one proved a little more difficult as TIE daggers tried to stop Finn, Janna, Hux, Rose and Terry from reaching the tower, killing Snap and even Terry on their way. Poor Terry and poor Snap too. But things only got worse as Pride had ordered BB-9E, that's right, the droid is coming back, to man the turret in front of the tower to deal the final blow. Janna and Rose do get hit in the crossfire of the blast, and Janna looks like that she's going to fall, but Hux saves her with all of his strength. But BB-9E shoots at Hux, causing him to fall down to his death on Exegol's surface. But his death was not in vain, as Janna was able to fire at BB-8's eyes with one of her arrows, and Finn rips off his head before the turret explodes. Lando's fleet then arrives during their hour of need, with Jason Syndulla and Dash Rendar among them. Hey, even they get cameos too, nice. Rey and Ben, with the Knights of Ren and Protectors defeated, stood to face Palpatine in one-on-one combat. The Sith Lord began to absorb their power, but this time, him absorbing the dyad in the Force also made him younger as well as powerful, and a young Palpatine, now played here by Matt Smith, was reborn. Things play out as they do in the original, but more voices from the past Jedi can be heard. And the voices of the Jedi in this version are as follows: Obi-Wan, Yaddle, Plo Koon, Quinlan Vos, Anakin Skywalker, Luminara Unduli, Ahsoka Tano, Yoda, Qui-Gon Jinn, Eve Koth, Saesee Tin, Ayla Secura, Shak Ti, Mace Windu, Ade Gallia, Ezra Bridger, Cal Kestis, Deba Billapa, Caleb Doom, Kit Fisto, Kiadi Mundi, Sierra Junda from Jedi Fallen Order, Evan Peel, Yariel Poof, Tiplar and Tip Lee. And moving right along, we got F from Star Wars Visions, the Village Bride, Galen Marek from the Force Unleashed, Mara Jade, Kyle Katarn, Ram Kota, Jaro Tapol, Jaden Court, Barris Offie, Cypher Diaz, Oppo Rancisis, Nadar Veb, Eno Cardova from, of course, Jedi Fallen Order again, Lop, Luke, and Leia. Ooh, it's a lot of Jedi, I know. It's a lot of Jedi, but I feel like giving like each and every individual Jedi a line just to just to balance it out a bit, because while they couldn't get those people at the time in the original film, having a voice from each individual Jedi would like give them more that they are always with the living Force. And at the infamous clash between Rey and Palpatine, as she tried to hold off Palpatine's lightning, is pretty much struggling at this point, but Palpatine laughs and says to his now fallen granddaughter, as he puts it, quote, "You are nothing. A failed pawn of a Palpatine is powerless to face me alone. I am the Emperor. I am a god. I am all the Sith." Rey struggles and replies, "And all was lost for Rey, until Ben comes in and says, "I'm not alone." Rey and Ben use all their might to push Palpatine back, and with the help of Lop, Leia, Luke, and Anakin, Palpatine disintegrated into nothing. As he exploded, Rey and Ben were pushed back and knocked out by the explosion. A huge wave of Force lightning took the whole Final Order fleet out with him, bringing the victory to the Resistance. Ben was the first to wake up and wants to wake up Rey, but stops himself. After all he had done, all he had destroyed, there was no going back for him. He leaves the Skywalker saber next to Rey and flees to exile before Rey wakes up, upset, but happy that Ben is going to be okay. She leaves the temple to meet up with Finn and the others beforehand and heading back to Agent Kloss. Many celebrated, but there were those who still wanted to mourn the fallen. Maz had lost her husband, but Lando gifted her a friend in him, and a whole bunch of ex-stormtroopers needed to make a living after the long war. Finn is made into the new leader of the Resistance, but Rey still feels so empty, despite being victorious. Many years have passed since the Battle of Exegol, and Rey goes to Tatooine to bring all three of the Skywalker sabers, including Luke's green lightsaber, before igniting her own yellow lightsaber, just as the original. An old lady comes before Rey and asks who Rey is, but in this version, we cut to Kefbir as Ben Solo is mourning a gravestone for his grandparents, his uncle, his parents, and his master. And thanks to the Dial in the Force still there, he turns around and he sees Rey on Tatooine. She stares at him while the Force ghosts of Anakin, Padme, Luke, Leia, and Lop are right behind him. No words, but their faces said what they wanted to say. And at that moment, Rey was looking at Ben, asking him, "Is this okay?" Ben nods. Rey turns back to the old lady and says, "Rey Skywalker." Ben then rides away on an oarback, while Rey and BB-8 stare into the binary sunset as the screen fades to white. We then cut to a shot of an aquatic jungle planet where a young girl walks over to her mother's grave and gives her some flowers before saying hi. A Jedi symbol is carved onto this gravestone, meaning that this girl could be a Jedi, but it's left as a mystery as someone calls the girl Kira home, but not before she looks into the giant moon as the film ends. And with that is the end of the rewrited sequel trilogy. Now, I will be honest, I don't feel like, continuing on that part of the story, to be fair. If anyone does want to continue this story, they're more than happy to. They have my permission to continue the story, but from what I've written down so far and what could have been done later down the line, it's all left up to question. But for this rewritten sequel trilogy, I hope it was a good time. It might have not have been as good as the prequel or original trilogy, or for some people, not as much as the original sequel trilogy. But I hope everyone has enjoyed today's rewrite. There will be more Seanster cuts in the future, including Naruto, the Seanster cut, which is coming out in 2023, summer of 2023 to be precise. But, of course, if you enjoyed this video and whatever rewrites and an awesome times are to come, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content coming soon. Very much appreciated to all my friends, my families, and amigos. I could not have done this without you. And, of course, from everyone here at Seanster 5, as well as everyone from the Mass Legion, and everyone in the Seanster Patrol, Maypie family, and Manny Posse, thank you so much for joining me on this rewrite, and I'll see you all next time for whatever rewrites come next. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed the show, and I'll see you all next time. And happy holidays too. Bye-bye.